Welcome to Our Hen House. This is Jasmine Singer.
And this is Marianne Sullivan.
And we're so happy you're joining us this week. Marianne will be interviewing Kristof Dhont and Gordon Hodson. I hope I said that right. And they've just edited a book that attempts to answer the question that we pretty much ask ourselves basically all the time, why we love and exploit animals. I think you'll be surprised at how many people are thinking seriously about and writing about this question compared to just a few years ago.
It was a very exciting interview, and there's so much research going into this, which I kind of had no idea of. And so I think people will be really interested in hearing this because, it is kind of, as you said, the question. And on the bonus segment this week, I continued my conversation with Kristof and Gordon. And if you're a Flock member, you'll get that link to the bonus segment in your email on the Tuesday after this podcast goes up, or you can always find it on the Flock Facebook group. And if you're not a member of the Flock and you can afford it, you can join for $10 a month at ourhenhouse.org/donate.
What a steal.
Also, as a special thank you to our Flock community, we're going to be doing our Flock Friday Zoom call every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. That's 1 p.m. Pacific, and all sorts of different times around the world, which is when people from Australia have joined us, apparently at 5 o'clock in the morning or some crazy time. And so we're discussing some of the topics we're struggling with. We're discussing some things we want to know more about. Sometimes we're just shooting the breeze. So if you're a member of the Flock, check out the Flock Facebook group for updates or write to us at info@ourhenhouse.org.
And before we get to your interview today, which I'm excited about, there was an article in Bloomberg that we wanted to chat about. U.S. meat packers don't have many answers for lack of distancing.
Yeah, this article was written as a result of the result of the investigation that Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker did into the spread of coronavirus at meat plants, which we know are really slaughterhouses, but we like to call them meat plants, or as opposed to plant-based meat is a totally different thing. These are meat plants. Anyway, so they released this report, and it turns out pretty much that they ain't doing nothing. Well, they say they're doing stuff. So this is how the article basically starts out. The four biggest meat packers, Tyson Foods, Inc., JBS USA, Cargill, Inc., and Smithfield Foods, Inc., pointed to measures such as staggering shifts and sanitation systems, but gave soft responses when it came to implementing social distancing in production areas of the plants where workers are often in elbow-to-elbow conditions. And I think that what this article shows is what we always say about every time they talk about implementing better conditions for animals or implementing anything. They can't do any of it. It's not feasible. They have a business model that does not work. So all they can do is lie. I mean, they lie all the time about what they're doing to animals. Now they're lying about what they're doing to their workers. The companies, it says here, gave no indication that workers were consistently being spaced apart on production lines. They just basically said they couldn't do it. I love JBS's statement. It said it increased spacing in cafeterias, like where they eat, but not on the production lines. Well, big fucking deal. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it makes me think of, I just interviewed Seth Tibbett I interviewed him earlier this year for Our Hen House, but I also interviewed him recently for the Faces Summit, which is this conference that you can learn more about at facessummit.org, and it goes up next week. But the reason I bring that up is because he is, of course, the owner of Tofurky, and he talked about what they've done in their factory to keep people safe. And they can spread out because it's not a system that is reliant on this quick moving, the meat is going to go bad. So they can spread out. There are plastic partitions in between everybody. They also, removed all but 10 chairs from the cafeteria, which is what made me think of it because you just mentioned that. But they're completely able to social distance in an actual plant meat.
Yes,
I said that wrong. In a plant meat plant. That's right, a plant meat plant. # plant meat plant.
The guy who heads up Tyson, I think it is, Chief Executive Officer Ken Sullivan. No relation. Kind of admitted it. For better or worse, our plants are what they are. 4 walls, engineered design, efficient use of space, etc. Spread out? Okay. Where? To say it is a challenge is an understatement. I.e., we can't do it. We're not going to build much, much bigger plants in order to do it. And this is the way it's going to be. This article does go into the fact, and they were criticized for the fact that, they were exporting meat through this whole process. So this idea that they have to feed America it would be a little bit of an exaggeration, even if anybody did have to eat meat, which they don't, which we know because we live that. But this is the kind of quote you get. Candidly, don't you just always know that it's when somebody says, like, bullshit. To be honest, candidly. We are weary of critics in the media who are detached from the realities of this worldwide pandemic, namely that we must produce food and somebody has to do it. Well, Ken ain't out on the line getting coronavirus. The somebody he's talking about are his workers. They're getting sick and they're dying. And like, apparently we're just going to take that. We're just going to take, Ken's okay with that, because we have to feed America. We have continued to run our processing plants, distribution centers, farms, and feed mills for one reason: to sustain our nation's food supply during the COVID-19 pandemic. Operating is not a question of profits. It's a question of necessity. Oh my God, do they really believe anybody buys this stuff?
That's funny.
Cargill said that it would continue to focus on education and awareness of social distancing inside and outside of work. So they're explaining to their workers that they should stay away from people when they're outside of work. Well, that's really helpful. This includes... I love this one. This includes... Oh my God. This includes encouraging employees not to share food during meals. Well, good for you, Cargill. That'll do it. That's where the problem was. People were like tossing their sandwiches across to their neighbor, and they were splitting up their lunchbox. What? Oh my God. They did, they all said they installed protective barriers, but where they couldn't install protective barriers, they provided face shields. And everybody got sick and a lot of them died. So that obviously didn't work. Then they say things like this. Finally, there has been no increase in livestock brought in from outside of the United States. All of our turkeys and fed cattle are sourced from U.S. growers, producers, and feedlots. Well, who was saying they were bringing in more animals from outside of the... Nobody is claiming that. In fact, the point has been made that they couldn't even manage to slit the throats of all the American animals. Why the hell would they have brought in animals from outside of the United States or more? Just the bullshit. It's just like you could wade through it.
You're feisty today.
Oh,
I like it.
They make me mad.
It's a little unreal. I mean, but yet it is here. It is real. Well, okay. Switching gears. I mean, we know that there are places like Tofurky, and there are places that are working to actually bring some kind of sanity into this complete insanity. So that makes me happy. So things have been a little intense lately, just in the world, to say the least.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? I didn't know about that.
So we watched a movie the other day to sort of be a counterpoint to that. And it was not your first time.
I had recommended this movie to you.
Yes, and I will in turn recommend it to anybody listening to this who is sobbing into their cereal right now, which is the movie is Kristof Robin, and it's a Disney production, and it's about Kristof Robin all grown up, and he had forgotten all about Pooh, but then Pooh reappeared in his life at just the right moment. And the reason why we're bringing this up is because obviously stuffed animals are real.
Yes. Well, this is an ongoing problem in our lives. We both have
giant problem.
Really, really close relationships with a number of stuffed animals. I realized that we're not alone. There are a lot of adults. I remember when I was watching that show, The Repair Shop. It's a British show, and I just loved it. And it was a reality show about people who have these beloved possessions, and they bring them in to have them repaired. And the people who brought their stuffed animals in, they didn't want to leave them. They were upset that they were leaving them there. That the relationships were obviously very strong. It made me feel a lot better. At least there are other people in the world who are crazy. But I've always worried about admitting how much I do find solace and reality in my stuffed animals, because people will think that that's how we relate to real animals, that we're just making it all up. actually, I'm not making it all up when it comes to real animals. And actually, I'm not making it real up when it comes to stuffed animals either.
Well, okay. This is a safe space thing. This is between you and me and whoever's listening.
Right. And whoever's listening is not allowed to repeat this.
It goes no further than us. Yeah, this is definitely a thing. It's funny because the other day I was on a meeting and for a bunch of reasons I had to take the meeting sitting in my bedroom. Like there's a little love seat at the end of my bed. So I was sitting on the love seat, but the video was sort of facing my bed, like the camera. And I was like nodding and being professional. And I'm looking in the little Zoom box with me in it. And I realized like a bunch of my stuffed animals are in the shot. So I turned the video off and I quickly moved my stuffed animals and then I turned it back on. So like if anyone was actually paying attention to me, they would have seen it would have been like a TikTok video. Like the stuffed animals are there. No, they're gone. I have some feelings. For those of you
who are listening who are thinking, okay, didn't realize it. These women are crazy. Like, just forget we said this. And for those of you who are listening, who are saying, yeah, watch Kristof Robin, you'll like it.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So I have an entertainment related thing to bring up, and I told you I was going to do this. Can I do this now?
Yeah, I don't know what you're going to do, but yeah.
I don't know whether this is going to be easy or hard. Anyway, I was looking out my window today, and I saw the FedEx truck. And it slowed down, and I was all excited, and then it speeded up again. It was very sad.
That's so sad.
And as sometimes happens to me, a song started going through my head. And these were the lyrics that went through my head. And I want you to see if you can name the song, the show it was from, and who played the character who sang it in the movie.
Way to put me on the spot. Okay.
Well, I don't know. This could be really easy. I don't know.
All right.
It may be something for someone who is no relation, but it could be something special just for me.
No.
You don't have it?
Ugh, I don't know. I don't have it.
Well, I'm going to sing it and see if that makes it clear.
Okay.
It could be something for someone who is no relation, but it could be something special.
Is it the Music Man? Is it the Music Man?
Yes.
Okay. Thank God.
Just for me.
All right. So it's the Music Man. And then what was the next question?
The name of the show. Oh, no, the name of the song.
Oh, I don't think I'm going to get the name of the song. So wait. Is it something special?
No.
Oh, damn it. Okay.
And then who sang it in the movie?
I think it was like maybe someone whose name is Barbara. There were a lot of Barbara Broadway people. I don't know, but I got 1 out of 3. What was it? Who was it?
The name of the song is The Wells Fargo Wagon.
Oh, yes. Okay. That's right.
And
Wells Fargo, da 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 da. Nobody. We're gonna lose all of our listeners on this episode.
I know they're gone by now. Poor Kristof and Gordon.
Should I just tell you, the bearded vegans have these specials going around about their discussions of like cultural misappropriation regarding Thug Kitchen, and we're singing Broadway tunes. That's fine. Whatever.
Yeah,
to each
it's
their
totally
own.
fine. It's totally fine.
Anyway, so the name of the song was the Wells Fargo thing, and who played it in the movie?
Ron Howard. As a
right,
5-year-old.
No, I
Ron
saw
Howard.
it. That's right. I did know that, of course. Oh, I'm so annoyed. It was like in my brain.
Before he played Opie on The Andy Griffith Show, before he played Richie on Happy Days, before he became a movie director and producer, he sang that song in The Music Man.
That's awesome.
That was fun. I enjoyed that. I hope nobody's hung up on us.
Probably they have. That's okay. The people who you interviewed today are like, what's the time code to get to our interview? What's the timestamp? We need to tell that.
Oh, I know. And they were really smart. And
we're smart,
and serious people.
You know. So I'm moving back to New York from where I've been here in LA. I've been in California since 2016. And I realized that I have been in California basically for the entirety of the Trump administration. Like, it's like I needed to be in California during it for some reason, because that was the amount of time I've been in California, which is like, you know, hopefully when I move back, everything will change. But that being said, it is less than 3 months to the U.S. election. I have on my to-do list for moving to re-register New York. Are you registered?
I am registered, but I have not submitted my application to vote absentee. Anybody can vote absentee in New York, but you do have to send in an application, and I'm sure they're going to be very backed up. So I really feel irresponsible about that, and I have to get that done. So I just wanted to remind everybody, check to make sure you're registered if there's any question at all. Maybe even if there isn't any question at all, just check. And if you need to vote absentee, take care of whatever needs to be done, if that's even possible where you are. And as far as the presidential election goes, even if you are in a state, because of the Electoral College, a lot of us feel that it's a foregone conclusion and maybe may not feel that it's that important because either one party or the other has such a predominance in their state. Well, forget that. Even if you think that your candidate will win overwhelmingly, you have to vote this time. Everybody.
Absolutely. Totally.
I'm not going to say who to vote for. Just saying that you have to vote. Sorry to all of you out there who aren't in the U.S., but I think you'll forgive us.
Yeah, I'm not sorry for you if you're not in the U.S. I'm jealous of you.
That's
and
true.
there now you know who we're voting
That's
for.
That's very true. And they won't let us in either.
I don't blame them.
I don't blame them either.
I mentioned a moment ago the Faces Summit. I just want to say again that if you go to facessummit.org, you'll learn all about the Farm to Animal Conference e-Summit, which is happening this coming week, August 3rd to the 9th. And you register in advance. It's free. And every day between August 3rd and 9th, you'll have access to 3 new video interviews for 24 hours, featuring our movement's most important thinkers and leaders and activists as they discuss the most relevant issues for farmed animals today and in the future. You can also watch later or download the videos and audios for lifetime access if you purchase the Summit Pack. So you could either do a purchase or you could do it for free. And it is a benefit of Animal Place. And I had the great opportunity of interviewing 4 people for it. So you'll see me all over it. And they were really meaningful interviews. So I hope you check it out.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Another thing that's really cool is supporting vegan businesses right now. And as you know, a lot of them need extra support. So we're shouting out a few each week. Some of them are places that we know. Some of them are places we heard about. Some of them are places that submitted. And if you know a vegan business or have a vegan business, you can also submit an application at ourhenhouse.org/vegan businesses, all one word. First of all, I want to mention one of our very, very favorite people in the world, and that's Lori Johnston. She does all of this graphics work for Our Hen House. If you have noticed that Our Hen House has a certain look, that's because of Lori. And she does it as a volunteer, and we are incredibly grateful to her because she's so talented. We're just very privileged to have her work representing us. And she has her own business, Two Trick Pony, and they produce messageware. And actually, I think it started out, I'm not positive, I think it started out with, and it still is so well known for their greeting cards. But also they also have tote bags, and we just love her products. So you can check them out at twotrickpony.com and on all the social media.
Yes, totally. And Lori has been working with us for probably a decade. She's an incredible person, an incredible artist. And we have one other business to shout out for you. We always want to make sure to include a Black-owned vegan business. And this is one that I've had the pleasure of sampling myself. And it's called Happy Ice. And I know at first you might be like, really? Ices? But these are ices that taste like ice cream. And I don't understand how they did it because it's basically magic. And they're all rainbow. If you go to Instagram.com or if you go to Happy Ice on Instagram, you'll see what I mean. They're a premium water ice product made from a secret recipe from Philadelphia with an artistic LA twist. And it has this smooth, rich, creamy texture of an ice cream. And it has the light, fruity refreshment of a sorbet without egg or dairy of any kind, of course.
I want that.
You need it right now because it's 97 degrees there.
It's 95 degrees. It's 90. I just want everybody to know it's 95 degrees as we're recording. And I don't have air conditioning downstairs.
Okay.
Which is where I am. And I had to shut all the fans off so that it wouldn't be annoying to you. So you better be grateful out there.
Well,
all right, go on.
The results
happy
in
ice.
combination.
If I had a Happy Ice, I would be happy.
It is Happy Ice. You have sad ice. You have sad heat. This is the opposite of your life. This is Happy Ice. But the resulting combination from their like special secret sauce is just really delicious. And it's this vibrant explosion of colors and flavors. It looks like just like a gay rainbow, basically. I love eating a gay rainbow that brings happiness to any situation. And anyway, so they recently opened a brick and mortar in my neighborhood at 7324 Melrose. And they also have 2 trucks. It's just really, really cool flavors that they've got. It tastes like you're eating ice cream. By the way, I can't get in anymore. I went to Vegan Street Fair before COVID, and I had it there because they were there. It's basically like a, vegan street fair. And they had it there, so I had it. But now that they opened their brick and mortar, the line, which is the social distant line, to the window, which is open, which is on the street, so you don't have to go inside, is like every 6 feet increments. People are standing there, but they have the world famous rainbow rocket, which is what I had, strawberry lemon lush, watermelon lush, sour apple lush, mango madness, cherry bomb, blueberry blast, lucky lemon, and pineapple potion. So good. Anyway, so yummy. Love seeing businesses like that, but I also love seeing guests. So we are all over the place on this podcast. You got your Happy Ice, you got your Broadway, you got your discussion of these people in the meat slaughter plants where they can't get further away from each other and slinging sandwiches at each other in the lunchroom. And you've got your PhDs who are our guests today, which is Kristof and Dhont, PhD, and Gordon Hodson, PhD. They're the editors of and contributors to Why We Love and Exploit Animals, Bridging Insights from Academia and Advocacy, which is published by Routledge. Kristof is a senior lecturer in psychology at the University of Kent in the UK. He is the founder and director of Shark Lab, dedicated to the psychological study of human-animal relations. He investigates the psychological underpinnings and ideological roots of speciesism, racism, and sexism, and the moral psychology of eating and exploiting animals. Gordon is a professor of psychology at Brock University in Canada. His research interests include prejudice, dehumanization, and speciesism, ideology, and intergroup contact. They will be joining Marianne right after this. We're excited to announce Encompass Essays, Pursuing Racial Equity in Animal Advocacy, a collection of essays written by farmed animal protection advocates who are committed to exploring and prioritizing racial diversity, equity, and inclusion as we work to create a more just animal protection movement. The essayists contributing to this virtual anthology were all attendees of the 2020 inaugural Encompass DEI Institute, a virtual training for farmed animal protection advocates, which was originally held in February 2020. Our henhouse was a proud sponsor. The authors, myself included, are a group of advocates who wish to document our stories and processes in an exploratory space from which we can grow. And we'd like to hold ourselves and our peers accountable and create new ways forward. Encompass, the nonprofit that organized the Institute, aims to make the farmed animal protection space more equitable by working with organizations to operationalize racial equity and with individual advocates of the global majority by helping them cultivate their leadership potential. Encompass Essays is a collaboration between our henhouse, Encompass, and Sentient Media. I am lucky enough to be the editor of the essay collection. The only way to be an effective animal activist is to centralize anti-racism around our advocacy, which requires a deep dive into the ways white animal advocates have historically used our white silence and white apathy to ensure that the animal rights movement has been centered around a white supremacist culture. We need to change that. This essay collection will provide a new, necessary way forward, one in which we can be held accountable for centering our anti-racism in the fight to end the exploitation of animals. Sentient Media, where these essays will roll out throughout 2020, is a robust digital platform that reports on animal agriculture and its impact on the world, as well as fosters a writers' fellowship program where newer journalists are mentored by seasoned ones. Beyond the digital presence for Encompass Essays, which includes plans for audio versions of the essays, which will air on the Our Henhouse podcast next year, Lantern Books will be publishing an anthology version of the collection in both hard copy and digital form. The book is set to be released in late 2021. Down the road, we will parlay the work of the collection into a springboard for digital panels, collaborative discussions, and hands-on trainings. Additionally, the hope is that this is the beginning of a 3-part series where the authors will revisit our anti-racist work and provide updates to be published in future follow-up collections. Learn more about Encompass Essays Pursuing Racial Equity in Animal Advocacy by visiting sentientmedia.org/encompass-essays. Again, it's sentientmedia.org/encompass-essays. Welcome to our hen house, Kristof and Gordon.
Thanks very much for having us. We're pleased to be here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us. We're very excited to be on your podcast.
I am very excited to have you here as well. We have tried to record this interview 500 times, I think, and had tech problems. So I'm incredibly grateful for you for hanging in with me. The name of your book, I think, asks the question that most of the listeners of this podcast struggle with every single day of their lives: why we love and exploit animals. It is so inexplicable to most of us. So we're thrilled that you put together this collection of writings, and some of which you wrote and many of which were written by others. And, you know, I feel like a few years ago, maybe not that long ago, and I don't pay that much attention to the academic scene, but when there was research about animals or people talked about animal studies, it had to do something like portrayals of the horse in 18th century European painting, and not something I was particularly interested in. And all of a sudden, I find out there seem to be all these people doing research and writing about the real questions that face us politically and socially about our relationship with animals. Has there been an enormous shift? Am I right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a correct observation, at least in our own field in psychology. We've seen a huge increase in a number of studies on topics like meat consumption, like speciesism, and how it connects to our social psychological understanding of human-animal relations. That's also one of the main reasons why we put the book together. The field has exploded, really, and we thought, let's bring that now together to give an overview of many of these research lines.
It's very exciting, and particularly exciting is the subtitle, Bridging Academia and Advocacy. One of the reasons I'm excited to have you talking to us is that you are academics talking to an audience that is mostly activists. And are you really hoping that this book will have an impact on people who are actually doing this work?
Absolutely. In a sense, we're a bit puzzled sometimes at how academics and activists have some of the same goals, but seem to inhabit very different worlds and not necessarily talking to each other. And we really genuinely feel that both groups have a lot to learn from each other by listening to each other. And it's a little bit cliche, but sometimes, you know, authors say we wrote the book that we felt was needed out there. And that was definitely true in our case. We really felt that it would be great to bring people together that have different sort of perspectives and quite different focus in what their goals are and whatnot, and bring it together into a single volume. So we were really excited. To be honest, we didn't know at the first whether that was pure genius or whether it was folly, but we seem to be having positive reactions to it. So we're quite pleased about that.
Well, I'm certainly positive about it. I love this idea. Your own backgrounds, I know, are in psychology, I think, but you're both political psychologists, which I'm not sure I've ever heard of before, but one can obviously imagine what that is and how important it is right now in this moment when we find people's political attitudes so hard to understand. But before we get to that, what other fields of study are most likely to provide useful information and are included in the book?
Yeah, I think we need to draw upon like all kinds of different fields to get a better understanding of our relationships with animals and why we exploit them. So our own field is definitely key to this understanding, psychology, but also from the broader perspective, the contextual perspective, where we have fantastic sociologists approaching these topics to show that part of the species culture that we live in is fundamentally systemic. So it's really rooted in the context and the culture where we live, in the countries that we live. We've learned a lot about the thinking on these topics as well from philosophy and ethics and morality. So that provides a solid basis of the way we think about animals, but they typically stay away from the empirical research. So that's where psychology and sociology can come in to provide an empirical basis to these research questions.
We might be a little bit biased in that we're both trained as psychologists and sort of gravitate toward the psychology here. You know, in many ways, a lot of the psychology is really interesting because a lot of the ways that we think about and treat animals has to do with rationalizing our thoughts, justifying it, turning a blind eye to what we're doing. And a lot of that taps into a lot of psychological processes. So it's really interesting. This sort of awakening that's happening in psychology is realizing that studying human-animal relations is probably one of the best ways of studying human nature, because it really highlights all the biases, rationalizations, justifications, our thinking about dominance and superiority. It's really nicely captures a lot of that. So we are a bit biased maybe as being psychologists, but we really see the relevance to it. But we really wanted to draw people from other disciplines as authors of this book, and hopefully readers as well.
We all know that. As vegan animal activists, we all know that we don't understand why people seem to love animals and continue to do this. It's so inexplicable. Are there any particular highlights or just an overview of what's in the book? I know there are some people in there whom the listeners to this podcast will certainly have heard of. Do you just want to highlight, just give people an idea of what they will find if they delve into this book?
We have a lot of psychologists, social psychologists in the book, talking about the meat paradox, for instance, why we, on the one hand, love animals and claim to care about animals, but then keep eating them on a daily basis, and which involves a huge amount of animal exploitation along its way as well. That's definitely one of the major topics. Then we also focus quite a bit in some of the chapters on the interconnections between human-animal relations and human intergroup relations. And that's both from a psychological perspective as well as a sociological perspective, where we highlight that systematic biases against human outgroups is quite similar to how we are biased about our evaluations and judgments and treatment of animals. That's kind of going to that intersectionality approach. And in our own chapters, we are coming from that intergroup relations perspective in social psychology. But then we also have someone like Carol Adams from her own scholarly approach, having a chapter in her book. There are specific chapters on very detailed questions about our thinking about animals and how it's biased and how we can understand why we see animals, how we see them.
There's an article in there by Jean Bauer, right? Like, you really do reach out to activists.
Yeah, so that's actually a major third part of the book. Is like we also invited animal advocates to let them speak their ideas and their mind about how to address animal suffering. So as you might know, throughout the book, a lot of it is quite pessimistic. Is highlighting the negative parts of how what we do is actually quite nasty and exploitative. But then we have these animal advocates coming with a more pragmatic solution to it. How can we address animal suffering? And also they give a lot of good insights from psychology, how to reverse the patterns and change our behavior, and how to reduce meat consumption or go vegan. So yeah, that's the type of things you can expect from the animal advocates. And they really are in the field, so they know what works, or often have a better idea what works and what not. And that's kind of the type of chapters that we wanted to open the conversation between animal advocates and academics as well.
Kristof raises an interesting point there, actually, sort of in thinking about it. Someone might expect that the animal advocates might be more sort of pessimistic and the academics more cheery in their outlook. But actually, when you read the book, you see the opposite. Academics tend to really focus on the negative and the exploitation and the dehumanization and all those things. And I think one of the nice things that the animal advocates brought to the book is actually ideas about solutions and optimism. And I think really putting them together, it's kind of interesting, but it might be a little bit counterintuitive to what some people might think.
Yeah, it is. But when you think about it, anybody who's been in animal activism for a long time has to be by nature, just by regardless of experience, has to be by nature a somewhat hopeful person, or you would just either quit or shoot yourself. But let's not go there. We've always said it at our hen house that hope is our strategy. We may not have hope like really sincerely. We don't go there. Hope is what keeps people going. And so you just have to use it. Let's get a little into your work, because there's so much fascinating stuff in here. And one thing that was counterintuitive for me is that I have always thought that the one thing that kind of crosses the increasingly incredibly divisive political lines in our country, or this country, not yours, well, yours as well, because it's all over the world, it's just highlighted here, is our attitudes towards animals. I mean, I just have always thought there's people on the left who care about animals, there's people on the right who care about animals, but then you've done the research And you seem to state pretty compellingly that that's just really not right, that attitudes towards animals actually do follow these same political divides. So, what does your research show about political ideology and how we feel about meat eating in animals?
It's interesting because, as you point out, and you can certainly see it across the world and in places like the US in particular and Britain, where almost everything is politicized. So something like meat consumption, you're right, you would think, and perhaps even a few decades ago, people would be surprised to think about political ideology being related to things like animal welfare and meat consumption. But we're finding, and others are finding, pretty clear evidence that there is a political divide on this, that those on the political right end of the spectrum